He's like, I'm sorry, I'm ordering you to come back. Okay, how am I gonna get back? Chicago's already purchased a ticket for you. One of the directors from the FBI's facial imaging program stops me in the hallway. And he says, hey, I want you to know that that case you're gonna go work on, it's a federal case. We're involved in that too. He goes, go make us proud. You can come back when you're done. I get in this car, Prince William County Police Department. They drive me to the airport. I get on a plane. I land at O'Hare. They stop the plane before it hits the gate. 2 Chicago cops come into the airplane. The captain announces, would passenger Santoyo please come up to the front of the plane? And there I am walking, 2 cops waiting for me, and a lady says, I think he's getting arrested.
Lou, thank you for being here today. By way of an introduction, I wanted to provide a brief overview of your law enforcement career. Lou Santoyo began his law enforcement career in 1995 with the Cook County Sheriff's Department of Corrections. In 1997, he was hired as a police officer by the Cook County Sheriff's Police. He was promoted to detective in 1999 and later served as acting director of the Cook County Board President's Security Detail. His career with the Cook County Sheriff's Police includes assignments in patrol, detectives, child exploitation and organized crime, SWAT negotiations, criminal intelligence, and dignitary protection. Lou retired from the Cook County Sheriff's Police in November of 2019. After retiring from the Sheriff's Police, Lou continued serving his community with the Elburn Police Department and continues to do so as a village board trustee. Lou, thank you for agreeing to share your story today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So why law enforcement and why Cook County?
Back in 1995, I was working a dead-end job, and this was more opportunity than me growing up. I want to be a cop one day. Someone offered me an opportunity to work at the jail, and my plan was to just work there a couple of years maybe and get out. And it didn't end up that way. I ended up serving a 25-year career at the department. So it was the opportunity at the moment to work for the sheriff. I think that if I didn't have the opportunity to go to the police department when I did, I probably would have not continued there. But it was the police department, the opportunity to work there, that actually was the catalyst that set off this fire of 25 years of a career.
So is the opportunity to go from corrections to patrol, is that appointed or is that something you've got to test for?
No, you've got to test for. So when I'm at the jail, people are talking about the sheriff's police. I grew up in Chicago. I had never heard of the sheriff's police. I mean, we had Chicago police. So I was like, who's the sheriff's police? Oh, that's the elite, man. That's the place to be. That's the man. So I did my own research and I started to find out who they were. And I was like, wow, that sounds like an amazing place to work. The sheriff's police tested twice, once every 2 years, I want to say. And you had like 4,000 applicants. And if they took 30, that was a lot, 30, 40 candidates. It was very competitive. I can't say that I got in there because of anything great that I did. I think I was at the right place at the right time, and I'm blessed. I can't even tell you how blessed I feel to have made it to the Sheriff's Police. It was surreal when I got there.
So you have to go to an academy for corrections. When you go from corrections to patrol, do you got to go to an academy again?
Yes. So you have to take the test. So you go to I went to the Correctional Academy. I was hired February 14th, 1995, Valentine's Day. So you have to take a test for the Sheriff's Police. You have to get on a list. Once you're on the list, then it becomes a little more competitive. Once you get hired by the Sheriff's Police, which was a promotion from the jail, then you go to another academy. You go to the actual police academy. And then it's from then on, that's how it rolls.
So was that academy that academy for the Sheriff's Police, is that a residential academy or a commuter academy? I mean, do you live there or do you just drive back and forth?
No, it's a commuter academy. It was our own academy. It's still there. We had our own academy. And we have other agencies that are trained there as well. So when I trained at the Sheriff's Police Academy, we had several other agencies that were training with us, and a lot of them were still friends to this day.
Do you think being in corrections before becoming a police officer, do you think being in corrections helped you with that job?
Absolutely, 100%. You know, when you're in corrections, you're dealing with hardcore criminals. The Cook County Jail at the time was the largest single-site facility, and I want to say in the world. We had anywhere from 10 to 12,000 inmates at the time in one place. You were assigned to whatever division it was, and you worked with hardcore criminals. No matter what division you worked, you were going to work with a hardcore criminal. You learned to talk to them. You talk to them every day. You learn what they think, how they try to get over the system. They'll talk to you. They'll tell you why they're there. A lot of them were proud to talk about their crimes. And you learn a lot about the criminal mind. And I found it very interesting. And I would purposely have these conversations just for my education. What do these guys think? How do they think? That was a training ground for the police to be a good police officer. Because once you hit the streets, this serves as a good, background for you, if you will. Yeah.
So describe the Sheriff's Police a little bit. How big is the agency? Do you know geographically, what it covers, how much it covers?
Yeah. So we had 6 districts. The Sheriff's Police at the time was about 650 officers, the 3rd largest in the state of Illinois. Cook County is the 2nd largest county in the country. So just think about it. When I was, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I found out later on when I was the acting director of the bodyguard detail, I originally was one of the officers on the detail. I found out that Cook County has a greater budget than, I want to say, I may be wrong, around 17 of the states.
Wow.
Cook County's budget is massive. Geographically, it's massive. The unincorporated areas of Cook County, which we focused on, were just so widely spread. It could take a couple hours to get from one side of the county to the other. So it is huge. It's a huge county.
So your focus is on the unincorporated unincorporated areas within the county. Tongue twister there. But your authority is not limited to the unincorporated areas. You enforce crimes through targeted enforcement teams throughout the county.
Absolutely. We worked together with the local agencies, the jurisdictions. We understood our jurisdictional cover. Yeah. If our investigations took us into Chicago, which they did very often, we went in and enforced the laws. But we also had this respect for the agencies who we went into, because they had their own police departments. So we really didn't overstep our boundaries. We had this good professional relationship with the agencies around us. But we did cover the entire county. And yes, by virtue of our jurisdictional authority, we can go anywhere in Cook County and enforce laws. I mean, it was not uncommon. We took our cars home, so it was not uncommon to be driving to work, and you're in. I was coming from Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, and to see some kind of serious traffic violation or an accident, well, you're in a squad car. You can't just keep going. So you stop and you act. Many times you'll have an arrest before you even got to work. So that was the dynamic of working in at the Sheriff's Police.
So you graduate the academy, you show up at your first districts?
Yes.
What do they call them? Yes. You show up at your first district.
Yes.
Do you remember what that's like for you?
It was surreal for me to show up at the first roll call and you are the police. I mean, back in the day, that was a term that really lifted you up. And we'll talk later about the police. But back then, it was an empowering thought to think that I have the authority to enforce the law now. And to show up at that first roll call and meet your FTO for the first time, and you're nervous, you don't know what to expect. You're scared. I was scared. It was intimidating. The bosses seemed intimidating, when they start telling you the do's and the don'ts, and they're like, you can't do this, you can't. You're like, okay, yes sir. And your uniform has to be pressed, and we had inspections and stuff, and it was like, wow. It was just surreal, intimidating, scary, but man, super exciting all at the same time.
So you have a field training program. What's that like for you?
Oh, I can't remember how many weeks it was, 16 weeks, or I can't remember. It was awesome. You ride with an FTO, and they show you the ropes. They teach you how to be the police. I happened to have, we had primary FTOs and secondary FTOs. So there was a part during your weeks of training with your FTO that you go from one to another. And so you can have a feel of two different types of views of policing. Mine were polar opposites. I had one who was aggressive and, really tough guy. And then the other guy was like, hey, come on in, sit down. Let's be friendly. But I was great because I had two spectrums of approaches that I can learn from, which was awesome for me.
Are there any memorable incidents, stories, calls from your field training time?
Oh gosh. Domestics. I worked the afternoon shift. I mean, the first night we were rolling lights and sirens out of roll call, right onto 53 off of Euclid Road. It was a domestic in progress, and it's getting physical. And I remember my FTO's like, "You're gonna be all right, right?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm scared. I'm like, what? And at the academy, they teach you, the most unpredictable calls are domestics, of many, of course, but those are so unpredictable. You're inside someone's home, So I remember him like, well, just remember we're there to restore order. Follow my lead, do what I tell you to do. You're gonna be okay. And my heart is like, so that was my first out of the box. Wow. On day one of FTO training. And it was not stopped. It was not stopped.
Kind of give me that 30,000 foot overview of your law enforcement career. So you start out as a corrections officer, you end up being a patrol officer with the sheriff's police, yeah. And where do you go from there?
Yeah, it's funny because when you're done with field training, you're on your own. They call it being cut loose. He's been cut loose. So I'm cut loose, and I learned from the best. I mean, my FTOs were great, so I knew what to look for. I knew how to handle, suspects on the street. And Cook County was busy, so it's like if you don't want to be busy, you're gonna be busy. So I was very aggressive. I grew up in Chicago. I grew up around gangs, so I'm familiar with the thug life, if you will. So I was able to build rapport with these dudes on the street, but at the same time, they knew I'm the policeman, and I let them know that. I let them know that. So fast forward 1997, right around 1998, one of the bosses asks me, "Hey, Lou, would you be interested in being a detective?" And I'm like, I'm barely learning my job here, and he's like, "You're doing very well." And one of the commanders of the detectives, we call them the Dicks, one of the commanders in the Dicks wants to know if you'd be interested in coming up. And I learned one thing: when a boss asks you to go somewhere, you don't say no. So I said, "Yes, sir. I would love to come up to the detectives." And I was like, what the heck am I doing here? So I went to the detectives. I spent time as a detective, a lot of years. But in a nutshell, I was in the detectives, and that was the unit I spent quite a substantial amount of time. Then I went to child exploitation. After child exploitation, I went to the county board president's bodyguard detail. After that, I came out of the bodyguard detail, not by choice, but by elections. When they switch county board presidents, well, they want their own people. It's understandable. Mm-hmm. So then I went to criminal intelligence. After criminal intelligence, I'm reaching the end of my career. I believe the last 2 years I went back to uniform. I knew I was on my way out. I was finishing up my degree. I knew what I wanted to do after my career. So I just went back to uniform and finished off my last year and a half or so in uniform. What a way to circle around back to the beginning,
Yeah.
you know. That was my run in a nutshell.
But you just couldn't be done because then you end up at Elburn. How's that happen?
And I met this girl.
That's how all good stories start.
Yeah. And she lived in Elburn. I was in, I had a little townhouse in Naperville at the time, and things developed. We ended up married, of course,
Yeah.
and I ended up in Elburn. Me being the guy that wants to be involved, I'm going to apply for Elburn, you know. Now, it was overlapped. I was still at the Sheriff's Police when the part-time, you know, and Elburn was on your days off, you know. It was at your pleasure whenever you had the opportunity to work, but they hired me. What a difference, man.
I bet.
From chasing people down and, you know, wrestling people down and handcuffing people and felony arrests to, hello, hi, oh yeah, let me help you get your groceries in the house, which is great. What a difference. And gave me a perspective on policing itself. It's different everywhere, you know. So I spent 6 years at the Elburn PD. Yeah.
How far is Elburn from the border of Cook County?
Well, from
Roughly.
Chicago, I know it's 50 miles.
Okay, all right.
50 miles from the city. So from the border of Cook County, I don't know, 40-ish.
So when you moved out there, a lot of cornfields out there
Oh,
in
yeah.
Elburn?
A lot of
Yeah,
cornfields.
very country.
I didn't know Elburn existed
Yeah,
until I met my wife. Yeah.
wow.
And now it's the best kept secret.
I don't know about that. I think a lot of people are
It's a
moving out
beautiful
there now.
little town.
Yeah, yeah. So when you look back at your career, what do you consider to be some of the high points?
My investigative experiences and my interaction with people of all walks of life, man. You want to talk about a melting pot, Cook County's it. The investigative process. They always said you're not a real policeman until you've been a detective. I do believe that, because as a detective, you take a crime from start to finish, all the way to putting someone in prison, you know, if it leads to that. So that has been the best memorable part of my career, if you want to put it in a nutshell. Now there's specifics to that, but yeah.
So you started your career in patrol, you end your career in patrol. I'm sure there's a little bit of patrol work in Elburn also. Is there
Yeah.
a traffic stop that stands out in your mind when you look back, or traffic stops?
And well, there are plenty of traffic stops. I think it's the big drug busts that just fall on your lap. I mean, I remember a traffic stop on Euclid, just coming out of roll call. Kid was speeding, and I noticed he's nervous, and he's got a little bag with green leafy substances. So there's my probable cause, you know. Fast forward, he's got like 50 pounds of weed in the back, all wrapped up in little baggies, ready to distribute. And it's not something that an officer won't see in his career often. It's how it just happens. Here's this kid drawing all kinds of attention to himself. I mean, if he'd have just been doing a speed limit, he'd have just skated by, but it just happened that way, you know? And that's one representation of many of how actually police work is it's a lot of knowledge, a lot of training, but it's a lot of luck. It's a lot of just by chance things. And that's where a good officer will have in his mind, or her mind, is to be observant. It's to be self-aware and aware of your surroundings at all times. You just never know what you're going to run into.
So that was with the Cook County Sheriff's Police?
Yes, sir.
And that was back in the day when cannabis was illegal.
Yes, sir.
Although that amount these days is
Well,
even going to present a problem
that
for you.
was still a problem, yeah.
What was the atmosphere back then for prosecuting something like that back then? I mean, was it...
Cannabis?
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't taken as serious as, you know, like meth or coke or things like that. I mean, we always looked at cannabis like more of a nuisance than like a real, oh my gosh, hardcore thing.
Yeah.
You know, I worked the Bridgeview district, and our area kind of blended in with Chicago's west side out of the Bridgeview district, and I would often stop, you know, like 63rd and Central, somewhere over there, right off where the city meets the next suburb. Little gangbangers rolling around, and I'd stop them on the midnight shift, and they'd have, you know, half a joint or something. I mean, really, it's a traffic stop. Am I going to lock you up and really, you know, mess up your life? You have a half a joint, nothing else, no background, no nothing. Like, back then, that's the discretion we had, and many times I would just throw it down the sewer and be like, call his parents or something, you know, and let them know what happened. That's enough punishment many times, you know. You really, that's, to me, is responsible enforcement, is to also be human, also look at the humanity, and also let people understand that you're not out to slam them every time, you know. But don't get me wrong, I enforced the laws, you know, but that was the dynamic with cannabis at the time. You know, the problem is if you're distributing it, you're going to sell it, now we're in trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's everywhere. It's been everywhere. It was there when I was a kid, you know?
So is there a particular call or incident that stands out in your mind when you look back at your career?
Yeah, there's a lot of incidents. I'll tell you the first one that pops in my mind right now. When you train, well, at least me, I asked myself at some point, will I ever do this? Hostage negotiations. Sounds great, right? You get trained on how to deal with a, you know, hostage crisis. And one thing they told us is the likelihood of you ever doing a real hostage negotiation is very low. I mean, you'll have a barricaded subject, but the classic scenario that comes to our mind is someone holding someone at gunpoint and giving you conditions and stuff like that. That ain't gonna happen, right? Well, I'm working child exploitation. It was a multi-titled unit. It was special operations, child exploitation, organized crime. We did all those things, right? So child exploitation is something that we work proactively, but sometimes it slows down. So we're efficient with our time. So one day I'm at the office. It's kind of slow. We were doing some child exploitation work. Bam, comes over the radio. Hostage situation in Orland Park. I'm there with my boss, Mike Anton. What? Are we hearing what we're hearing? He's like, yeah, dude, let's go. I mean, that's us, right? So him and I jump in the car, and we're flying down 294 to get to unincorporated Orland Park. There's a guy in a house, and I'll never forget, it was on a cul-de-sac. He's holding his ex-girlfriend hostage at gunpoint in the bathroom with her baby daughter, like 9-year-old daughter. And we're in the car, like we're getting all this information in the car while we're driving, and Anton's like, dude, you already know what we gotta do. He goes, you know, we're both negotiators, but he's the boss, right? So I'm the guy that's gonna go in there and how we're gonna get in the house, we'll figure out. Well, I believe when we got there, the door was unlocked or ajar or something like that. So it wasn't like we had to break in. We get in there and we're listening, you know, and we hear the voices up there, and the guys, you could hear them swearing and whatever, talking to the girl in there. So we go up the stairs and go into this bedroom, and there's a shut door. It's we knew it was like by common sense, it's the bathroom, and there's a bed. So Anton goes behind the bed, and he's got his you know, he's got his long gun on him on the door, and I stand by the door and I announce myself, and the guy's like, "What do you want?" You know, now it's like, all right, it better come back to me because this is the time. And I won't go into the whole story, but I started talking to the guy. We convinced him to get a throw phone in there. got the command center, we got the, you know, the eyes and the ears, we got the SWAT team. And after a standoff all night, man, I want to say the next morning, this came in like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm talking about 4, 5, 6 o'clock a.m. the next morning. Wow. We're finally getting them to come out. It was a team effort. I was the first guy to start making the communication. I made some good progress, and then someone else took over from there, you know, and the dynamics of hostage negotiations, when you see someone is starting to go stale, somebody else will step in and things like that. But talk about a case that comes to my mind right off the top. Why? Because I never thought I'd be involved in something like that, you know?
So you get that throw phone up there because throw phone allows you to move away from face to face or being right outside that door. So you get that throw phone. What's that deployment like? Is it through the door? Is it through a window? How does that work?
We were able to talk to him and tell him, hey, we're gonna leave the phone right by the door. No one will be here. Crack the door open, look at it, grab it. And I believe one of the SWAT team guys was the one who brought the phone up. And that's how that went down. I mean, he didn't have to take it. And if he didn't, then now you're stuck talking to him through the door. So obviously the guy wanted to talk, you know? So that's how we got that done.
And then so phone goes in, you guys go out, SWAT team stays there, and it kind of transfers.
Well, yeah, we had eyes and ears inside. I mean, the guy was done. I mean, if he made any bad moves, but then you don't know. I mean, there were no windows in there, so it's not like the SWAT, snipers could see in the house. He's in the bathroom, so you're relying on the guy that's in the bedroom.
The ex-girlfriend and daughter ultimately
we're okay.
Okay.
Yep, no one got hurt. It ended. I guess as peaceful as it could. No one was injured. So yep.
Have you ever gotten that feeling that something wasn't just right on a call or during an incident?
Yeah. So this wasn't on a call. This is here. When they say you're the police 24 hours a day, you're the police, man. So I was in church, right? And there's this couple that would go and help other churches with their music program. Lisette and Jonathan were their name. One day I'm talking to them and they're talking about helping this certain church with their music. And they talk about this kid that they befriended, and he was part of the music team or something to that effect. 22-year-old kid. They're like, he's kind of strange, he's telling us about he has a dysfunctional relationship with his girlfriend, and then he said something and then he stopped talking. Something about his pastor did something to him that was inappropriate and that he can't let it go. And they're like, can you help us? I don't know what that is. I'm like, the kid would have to talk to me, and I did this out of just police. The police thing is not even in my mind. I'm not thinking anything related to police. I'm thinking this kid maybe had some weird experience. Maybe me being a law enforcement officer, people at the time, they trusted you, right? So out of I don't know, deference to them, I'll talk to them, right? So they organize a meeting. I meet this kid, good kid, Hispanic kid, right? And he opens up to me. He liked me right off the top. I said, well, I'm here because Jonathan, they care about you and Lisette, and and if there's anything I can do to help you, mentor or whatever, I'm like, dude, that's what we're here for. It's a church. I mean, we want to do the Christian thing, man. He starts to tell me that his pastor was sodomizing him since he was 10 years old.
Wow. And how old is he now?
22.
Wow.
And I'm like, what do I even do with this? Gave me the whole story of coming from Venezuela. They brought him down and how he started getting groomed. He didn't say I was being groomed. He told me how it unraveled, and I'm like, he was groomed and how he was groomed. And I won't get into the whole gist of the story, but I'm like, he was still under the grip of this pastor who has a big congregation, 200 plus members in Chicago. I'm like, I can't just let this go. So, okay, we call Chicago, but where did it happen? He said it happened somewhere else, not in the city. So, okay, we could still call Chicago. They could figure it out. But from the context of what he told me, it happened in Cook County. At the time, I worked special operations. We had what we called confidential investigations. We can open up an investigation on anything that we deemed necessary to open it up on. That was just the nature of that criminal intelligence. I'm sorry, the special operations unit. So I go to the boss and I tell him what's going on, and he's like, "No, dude, you can't do that. We're not going to do that. That's crazy." And I get it. It didn't make much sense. I'm like, "Oh man." So I went to the chief. I went over his head, and I told the chief. The chief thought different. He's like, "You know what, Louie?" They called me Louie. Day one. What do you like to be called? Don't call me Luis or Louie. Louie it is. Everybody called me Louie for my entire career. Yeah. Side note. Yeah. So the chief's like, "You know what, Louie? I trust you." He said, "You know what to do. Just don't violate this guy's rights. If he comes and talks voluntarily, hey, talk is free. Look, I got no evidence of anything, right? I got a kid's testimony and a possible suspect. Zero evidence. This is happening over a period of what, 12 years or whatever it is. So I got nothing. The guy could tell me to pound sand and I got to go, right? So I go and I grab one of the best detectives up in investigations that I knew, Louis Sala, another Louis, right? I tell him, I say, "Hey, the chief gave me the green light, Lou." And he's like, "Heck yeah, let's go." So, all right. So he's kind of coaching me a little bit. You know, I had great mentors there, man. We knock on this guy's door. I start the conversation, you know. "Hey, you know, there's something we want to talk to you about. You're not in trouble, blah, blah, blah." You know, we give him the whole spiel. "Can you just come have a conversation?" You know, he's like, "You're not arresting?" "No, we're not arresting you, man." You know, I couldn't arrest him anyway. But he volunteered. He volunteered, right? So he drives up. Well, you could drive your own car, right? He drives up to the station. We sit down in the interview room. We start talking. Deny, right? But there were some little windows that he left open of possibility, you know. You know, in interrogation, you kind of look for those little vulnerabilities where they'll soften up, maybe. You know, many people have vulnerabilities, family, pets, kids, whatever, right? So he starts to open up a little bit, but he just wouldn't give it up, man. Luck, okay? I'm not saying I'm this great detective. I asked a question I made a statement out of pure luck. I said, "He loves you. He calls you daddy, doesn't he?" Well, the kid didn't call him daddy. He never told me to call him daddy. I just threw that in there. And he breaks down. I mean, I'm talking about a breakdown, a meltdown. He's sobbing. And I look at Lou and I'm like, "Yeah, man, I think we got something here, right?" So we kept running with the subject matter. You know, why would he make this up if he trusts his daddy? And that every time that would break him down. Finally, you know, after several hours more, gave us the whole story of how it started, corroborated the kid's story. I want to say he took like 14 years in prison. He was just paroled a couple years ago. It was all over the news. That was probably, if not the highlight of my investigative career, had to be it. Why? Because it wasn't a product of a 911 call. This came out of a conversation at church. And I'm just like, you know what? You just never know, man.
Nobody else ever came forward as other victims?
No.
Wow.
Nope.
Wow.
We went to the church. I mean, we conducted, the sheriff himself called me. I mean, the Cook County sheriff doesn't call anybody. He called me on my phone. Actually, I pick up the phone and he says, "Lou, this is a sheriff." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, dude." I thought it was one of the guys joking with me. And I'm like, "Okay, stop pulling my leg, all right?" And he's like laughing until finally I said, "Sheriff, sir, I'm sorry." You know how these guys are. And he was like, "We are 100% behind you." He goes, "Take your time. Any resources you need." I mean, he started just putting it out there because it was all over the news. This was like huge. And no other victims. We did a thorough interview of the membership there. A lot of people were surprised.
So was this young man brought in at 10 years old specifically for this purpose, or just he happened to be there and the circumstances presented themselves?
Churches can sponsor you from other countries. They sponsored the family, the mom and the boy. I don't know if he brought him for that purpose, but when the boy arrived, he targeted him. He groomed him little by little, and he would have parties at his house with other boys from the church, and the lucky one gets to sleep in the pastor's room, and guess who the lucky one was, right? That kind of thing. And it progressed. And he explained how slowly, it didn't happen like overnight, it was slowly, one step at a time. And when the kid started to grow up and started to make like almost outcries, like, "This isn't right. If you say anything, I'm going to tell people you're gay. And we'll send you back to Venezuela.
Wow.
If you say anything. If you tell your mom, you want to see your mom go back to Venezuela, back to the poverty that you were in. You guys have an apartment, you have everything here." And the kid, that's how he shut him up.
Wow.
Yeah. It was devastating. It was devastating. Yeah. This poor kid is now trying to figure out, life after being victimized in that manner, so.
Have you ever done something that maybe you later realized, oh man, that wasn't the best idea?
Yeah. I think it's more not it doesn't stem from one specific incident. It stems from a context. Let me explain that, I guess. Sure. So as a detective, I investigated violent crimes. After I got my feet wet, it was all violent, mostly all violent crimes. A lot of sexual assaults, a lot of female victims. And early in my investigative career, when I was investigating these, specifically sexual assaults, I was almost biased when I interviewed the victims because, well, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't remember the time, or you don't remember the time of day, or you don't remember things that I thought were common sense for them to remember? They couldn't remember. So I'm thinking, oh, they're lying, right? And that happened to me a couple times. They sent me to this training with a clinical psychologist, and it was about sexual assaults. And during that training, they talked about the parts of your brain. There's that part that the frontal lobe where you have your common sense and your chronological order of events, time of day, all that knowledge that's there, every day that we just take for granted. Well, when someone's being assaulted in that manner, that part like almost shuts down completely, is what they were saying. And the part that enhances, the part of your brain that enhances is that animal survival part, your senses, right? So you start your sense of smell, your sense of hearing, sight, it's enhanced. And I'm like, this is something, right? It's sunk in. I'm approaching it the wrong way. I was biased, and I didn't know I was being biased. I was judgmental, and I didn't know I was being judgmental. And I was not doing the best job investigating these crimes, and I felt bad. Luckily, it was mid-career somewhere, and I started to incorporate that into my interview techniques, right? So now it's like, can you talk to me about anything that you maybe heard, smelled, touched, anything? And they'll tell you, I smelled old sweat, and you know, I heard this, I could smell this hot breath. It smelled like onions or tomatoes. They'll start telling you crazy details. And when you validate and take that portion of their experience seriously, and you give them the time, it's funny how little by little that frontal lobe part starts to make sense, because somehow those senses trigger the memory of the logical part. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
I'll be darned. And that took me to another level of understanding, you know, the mind of how people think and why they think. And even after my career, I'm so intrigued, and we'll talk about it, I guess, later, but about why people do what they do. And I went to school, and I went as far as I could, and I finished a master's degree in criminal behavior because I just want to understand the whys. All to realize that I'm student loans in debt, and I still don't have the answer. So anyway, but it's been helpful. It's been helpful, you know.
So we hadn't talked about this, but I want to touch on it a little bit if we can, and that's specifically the child exploitation cases.
Yeah.
And the impact that has on the individual investigator, the individual detective, and looking at that, because I don't know that people necessarily realize that when you're building those cases, you have to review every piece of evidence, and you know, you have to be able to testify to that. What toll does that take on you?
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, and if I get emotional, forgive me. When I retired, I went to therapy to deal with bad dreams. And those bad dreams, I had convoluted scenes of things I saw. And it's taken me this long to understand that it's a form of PTSD. You're scarred. You're scarred. You can't unsee that. I was there 5 years, you know, and I'm not going to say I saw this every day. But it doesn't matter. In 5 years, I saw enough. One bad image is enough to mess up your head. And it is a very, very, very emotional burden that you carry. And here's the problem. When you have people who are, like, for instance, acquiring child pornography and things like that, when you start investigating, many times you're going to find real victims. And when you find the real victims, that's when it hits home. I had kids at the time. My boys are, you know, growing up, but I thought of my kids. And that we're only human. You can't help it. But when you find real victims, then you find other collateral damaged victims. For example, if you find kids who are abused, now you find mothers who were abused. And it's a vicious cycle. And that's the part that takes a toll on you. Because the biggest part is, we're cops. We want to fix things. We want to save people. You know, it's in our blood to do that. And I think that one of the most devastating part of being a policeman, period, no matter if you're a detective, a patrol officer or what, is not getting there in time. And oftentimes we're just reacting. Reactive. We just show up after the fact. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball. So I think that's the part that takes a hard toll on you when you work those kind of cases.
So Cook County, like you said, one of the largest counties in the country.
Yep.
A lot of resources, big budget. You would think that if anybody has a mechanism for caring for their officers that are, you know, knee deep in this stuff, like you said, maybe not every day, but often enough, that they would have resources right there built in, not this voluntary stuff, mandatory check-ins. Was there anything like that for you where somebody's checking in to see where you're at mentally and how you're coping?
Yeah, there were and there are resources. There's counseling, there's employee assistance, there's all kinds of stuff in place. The problem is, you just don't want to talk about it. I'll speak for myself. I didn't want to. I felt like I'm okay. I'm okay. Mm-hmm. I'm okay. You brush it off. You laugh a little bit. You find ways around it through humor somehow. That's why people think that cops have this twisted, sense of humor, and we probably do. But it is a coping mechanism many times to circumvent what's really up there. I talked about it with, my boss, Mike. We were good friends, talked about it with him. And I felt that maybe that's enough. But here's the thing with policing. Every day you go to work, you don't know if you're going to come back, okay? You just don't know. That in itself creates that fight or flight inside of you every day, whether you believe it or not. You can get so used to it that you don't know you're in fight or flight. People, why are you so strung out? Well, I'm fine. You're not. And you don't know that until you're gone. When I retired and I flipped the switch, I still had dreams that I was at work and people were telling me, go home, you don't work here anymore. Because somehow that switch just you don't just turn it off. So your body is still, your brain says, okay, you're done, but your body's like, no, you're not. I'm going to remind you you're not done. When you go to bed tonight and you have those dreams, you ain't done. And that's where it hit me, But during the time, yeah, it was horrible, but I don't know. I still can't explain the complexities of our human brain, our subconscious mind, our anatomy, our physical anatomy. It's like we react to things holistically, and it takes you to try to be more self-aware to even identify it. Other people, what do? They go to drinking or they do other things as coping mechanisms. And some of us, myself, I'm like, no, I want to understand this, man. I have young boys at home, and I want to be around. I want to deal with this and then move forward and still be productive and do good things.
So is there an incident during your career that you think back and you're like, man, I could have done that better? I wish I could have another shot at it.
Yeah, dude. My first homicide, I'll never forget, November 1999. Fresh, wet behind the ears, up in the detectives. Sergeant Houlihan calls me in the office and says, hey, it's time to break you in, kid. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, there was a homicide up north. There's a body in the woods, and you're up. I'm like, okay. Well, obviously he knew I'm new, so he sends me with Ron Russell. Now Ron Russell talks like this. He's a tough guy. Worked the John Gacy murders.
Wow.
So this guy's been around the block and knows his stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But Ron sees me as a punk. Not in a bad way. You're just a punk. I get it. I was a rookie. Didn't know anything, right? People are like, you're going with Ron? Good luck. So I'm in the car with this guy and doesn't say a word to me. We're going from Maywood all the way to Elk Grove, Higgins Road, Bussy Woods. That's where the body was, right? So I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And this guy's not talking to me. So I look over, I say, hey, Ron. He's like, what? I said, look, man, I'm just a kid, wet behind the ears. To you, I'm probably just a punk, man. And he's like looking at me, and I'm like, if you just show me what to do, help me learn, I won't ask any questions, man. I'll do everything you tell me to do. I just want to learn, man. And all he said was, you're not going to ask me no questions? I said, no, I won't ask any questions. He was, okay. So when we get there, this kid, 16-year-old Mexican kid, 7 shots to the head, executed. Didn't happen there. The case went cold. So you're asking me if I could have done something different? I wish I knew. Wow. I wish I knew what I know now. I think I would have done better. Because that case went cold, and I know, and the problem is Ron didn't speak Spanish, and everyone spoke Spanish. And I'm in the middle of this just repeating things, not asking questions or because of my knowledge. I'm just repeating questions and trying to understand the questions myself. I had to go tell the family that their kid was dead. I had to stand there and watch this mother scream. And those screams haunted me for years. To see her faint in her husband's arms and not being able to do a damn thing about it because I didn't know shit. So if I could do, not that I would have solved the crime, but I would have had better tools to do it. And I think we could have made better progress because of the language. I know Ron was guiding me all the way and he was investigating it as best as possible and things like that, but it was the language. If I'd have had the skill with the language, I think maybe we would have done better, and that's the one that I look back at.
What are some of your best memories from the job?
The camaraderie, hanging out with the boys, the biggest decision of the day, where are we gonna eat?
Yeah, that it is.
Yes, sir. And the funny stories. Not every case is, or every call is devastating or traumatizing. There's a lot of funny calls that we were on, or funny traffic stops. Maybe a memorable traffic stop. I should have, besides the kid with the dope in the back, is the guy who wanted a DUI.
What was that?
So I make this traffic stop at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, bright sunny day over in unincorporated Maine Township. And this 70-plus-year-old guy, this guy's old, driving erratically off the road. And I stop him, and he's got like 20 beer cans in the back of his seat. He is, can I say, shit-faced drunk?
Yeah.
Out of his mind, slurring. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing, sir? And I'm like, my partner, Dean Andre, comes up. He's like, what's going on, Lou? I said, I don't even know what I'm going to do with this guy. These guys between 75 and death, man. And he's drunk. So anyway, well, we got to go through what we got to go through, right? So I'm finally get to the point where I'm like, should I arrest him? Okay, talk about discretion, right?
Yeah.
And talk to the boss. Boss is like, you know what? Have someone pick him up, right? Okay. We don't want to slam this guy, right? Sir, is there anyone can come pick you up? He's like, no. Anyone at home? Well, my wife's home. Well, does she drive? Yeah. Well, she can pick you up. You got another car? Yeah. No, I don't want her to pick me up. What? It's that or a DUI? He goes, I want the DUI. What? You haven't seen my wife. I'm like, please, who cares? You're not going to jail. Get his wife's number, we call her. What? He's doing it again. Here she comes, right? He shows up, 6 foot plus. Big, wow. I was like, oh no, I was afraid of her. She had this mean mug. Harry, you did it again. Oh, I'm sorry. He goes, I told you, look at her. Like, we don't want to lock you up. Just go home, right? She grabs him by the arm, yanks him out of the car. He's like this much shorter than her. And she's dragging him to the car, and he turns around and looks at us one last time. And he goes, it's not like we're having sex anymore. Like, what? And we were like, what just happened right now? It was like, it was funny, but not. Thank God he didn't kill anybody, of course. And, it was a different day in policing.
Yeah.
It was a different day.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I miss a lot of those good times.
You have any stories related to well-known individuals?
Yes, so when I was on the bodyguard detail with the county board president, I met Bill Clinton.
Oh, wow.
You know what? It was still surreal. I'm like, this is Bill Clinton, to shake the guy's hand and stuff. I mean, I was in the presence of U.S. history. I mean, whether you like him or not, you know, he was still the president. So that was pretty awesome. And I think I worked off and on. I had an opportunity to work the basketball games. I saw Michael Jordan like 5 feet away. Never shook his hand or anything. And I met Mike Ditka at a Walgreens. It was on duty. I walked in there and there he was. Took a picture with him. And I think one of my partners locked up Scottie Pippen's brother up on the north side of the city, not north side of the county. So that was my closest brush with fame.
Hey, you bring up working on that protective detail. What was that like for you?
Oh, man. So we had Secret Service training.
Okay.
You know, so it's great training, man. The same training that the Secret Service has for the president. You know, so that was amazing. And you think, oh yeah, we're gonna be, you know, no, nothing like that. You know, it was more. There was 5 of us on the detail at a time. 2 or 3 rode in the SUV with the president, and 1 in the trail car, or vice versa. However the needs dictated, long days. The man's busy. So basically, when you work for someone like that, or you know, when you protect someone like that of that stature, your day starts when theirs starts, and your day ends when their day ends. I felt like I was never home. It was fun. Got to hang out at a lot of cool places, eat a lot of good food. I mean, you know, they have meetings downtown Chicago, and they're like, hey, bring your guys in here, order whatever you want. All right, you know. So it had its perks. I was almost like on a first name basis with the mayor, Mayor Daley. Hey, Lou. I was like, oh, mayor knows my name. That was cool, you know. We sat in their meetings and we heard all the political talk. We signed a statement that we would never repeat what we heard, and I'm never going to repeat it now. Yeah. Just going to tell you, we sat in there and heard what they talked about, which was learning. It was a learning experience, and you kind of see how the real world works, you know, and you see how people's the general public's opinion of how government works is so much different than how it really works, and how the media plays in, and how things can go south real easy, how things could be misunderstood so easily. You know, you learn a lot about your world. That was a very, very rewarding time. A lot of learning. It was cool. It was cool.
Do you think that closeness, that, you know, upfront first person view of that's kind of what led you to becoming a trustee?
It had an influence.
Yeah.
I had an understanding of government. I mean, I attended every Cook County Board meeting. Mm-hmm. So when the spot opened up for trustee, I wanted to have an input, and I have this experience that I saw that I can implement. So I absolutely had there's a direct correlation to why I ran for the trustee's position and why I serve now. And I had to resign from the Auburn Police. Because it's a conflict of interest, which is fine. I mean, my time was done with police work per se, you know. So I was ready for another venture, if you will. Yeah,
it's definitely a young man's game, especially when you look at all the stuff they're carrying these days. Jeez.
Yeah, man. Like, jeez.
Crazy. It's crazy.
I'm like a kid sometimes with these. What is that?
Yeah.
On your belt. Yeah. Who's this guy asking me that goofy question? You know. Yeah.
So, was there anybody in your career that you looked to as a mentor?
Yes. The gentleman who gave me the opportunity to work for the sheriff's office to begin with, his name's Lorenzo Clemens. He mentored me throughout my entire career. Here's a man who came to our church and just started a chaplain program at our church from the sheriff's office. He's the guy who told me, hey, you're working a dead-end job. You're about to get married. Wouldn't you want to make a little more money and maybe have a more steady job with benefits? Yeah. How about the jail? No. He talked me into it. He said it's not as bad as you think. And, I don't know about that. But he believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. He saw in me leadership that I'd never thought I had. So I got to give credit to him. I got to give credit to Ron Russell for mentoring me after that. We became good friends. Actually, I just saw him not long ago at a gun show. He's still walking around, you know. I still cracked a few of the jokes from back in the day. We had a kid in that homicide. We had a kid that every question he asked him, he would say, what happened? He would say, where were you last night? Oh, I was over here. Okay, how about your buddy? Where was he? What happened? And Ron said, if you say what happened one more time, right? So I saw him at the gun show and, hey, Ron, what happened? And he's just like, oh. So, Ron was a good mentor. I had a lot of guys who you know, were good mentors, but right off the top, and Mike Anton, my boss in child exploitation, he mastered the ability to be a boss that you respected and be a friend at the same time without losing the respect as a boss. This man, I owe him a lot. He looked out for me and taught me a lot. Yep.
Let's kind of put technology aside a little bit, if we can. Aside from that, because that was a huge change in law enforcement, what's one of the biggest changes that you think that you've seen take place in law enforcement?
Outside of technology, I was going to say body cams, but outside of technology is the shift, the social shift of how police are viewed. We could blame anything we want, but there was a shift. When I was the police, people respected us. People had a healthy fear of the police. I mean, I'd be in a squad car, and if a squad pulled up behind me, I'd be nervous. And I'm like, I'm in a squad myself, in uniform. Yeah. I had that healthy fear of the police. Now, it's more defiance. I don't know, man. I see these YouTube videos of people just kind of looking to get a rise out of the police. And I think that we're losing sight of the real meaning of what police work is. But I also believe that we need to reinvent policing, so to speak, because we can't force the same methodologies and the same paradigm on a society that won't accept it anymore. So when you have law and order, you need to understand, the people need to understand that they are under that law and order, and they have to accept. Otherwise, you have chaos. So that's a sad thing that I'm seeing now in the world of policing. I have kids, and if my kids said I want to be a cop, I'd be like, what about a fireman? They're cool, you know. And this little rivalry we have with firemen, friendly rivalries, of course. We call them second responders, but
So you bring up your kids. What do you think the impact on your family was, the job? How do you think it impacted your family?
Man, it was a double-edged sword. My family, everyone, were extremely proud of me and extremely worried for me every day. And I think that's the impact. Constantly knowing in the back of your mind, you might not come back, right? I mean, that's always in the back of everyone's mind. We don't say it. But I remember one time I was getting dressed for work, and my little niece, Melissa, she's visiting that day, and I'm putting on my bulletproof vest, and she goes, Theo Lewis, is that so they don't kill you? I was like, thanks a lot. Yeah. Thanks for the reminder, kid. But it's a reality, you know? That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Looking back, do you have any regrets?
Yes and no. I'd never pushed to be a sergeant or above. I really didn't care. I loved the investigations so much that I wanted to be a sergeant or a supervisor, but then I give up a lot of what I'm doing. Your job changes, you know. Not to mention, you go back to the midnight shift, and who knows, in Cook County, you're buried on midnights until who knows when. But that wasn't the point. I mean, that was a factor. Then you look at, it's an upgrade in pay. Well, is this all about money? Mm-hmm. Well, what is this all about? Leadership? I'm a leader every day. I lead from where I stand every day. I lead my investigations. I'm in charge of my crime scene. You could be the chief of police, and if you walk into my crime scene, you need to understand that I'm in charge of this crime scene. And I'm gonna tell you what you need to do because I know what needs to be done at this crime scene. But also the chief understands that too. I'm using it as an example. We all understand the scope of what we do. So it's not about being the boss. You're the boss every day. So I was like, people, did you take the sergeant's test? No. I took it a few times. Get some time off or whatever, hang out with the guys. Not only for that, but I made the list every time I took the test. But did I really push and put myself out there? Hey, I'd love to be a sergeant. No, I didn't. Actually, Chief Kinsella called me in one time during the time I was a sketch artist for the department, and we had this big FBI case. The federal judge's mother and husband were murdered, and I did the sketches for this murder, right? And this put me on the map. My sketches made it to America's Most Wanted, and from there on, I became the sketch artist in the entire region. I was trained by the FBI in Quantico, Virginia. And I remember the chief calls me in and says, hey Lou, the sheriff wants to promote you to sergeant. I was like, oh no. Well, part of me was happy, part of me wasn't. And he's like, are you on the list? And I said, no. What's wrong with you? I said, nothing, chief. I didn't take the test. Well, why didn't you take the test? It's just not on my radar. It wasn't on my radar, and I kind of have that regret.
Yeah.
Kind of. But then again, I'm good.
So we didn't touch on the sketch artist thing. So were you an artistically inclined person?
Yes.
And then they send you to Quantico.
Yes.
And what's that training?
Well, you want to hear the story?
Yeah,
okay. So
yeah.
I grew up drawing people. I already drew you in my face. I already drew you in my head. Sorry, not my face.
Do me a favor, make me look younger.
I could do that. I'm trained in age progression.
Oh, that's funny.
I could draw you you want to see yourself at 90? I could do that?
No, I don't.
Okay. I could draw you at 15 again. Okay. So growing up, I had this obsession with drawing people's faces. And I got pretty darn good at it. The more you do something, the better you get at it. When I became a police officer, I would draw cartoons of anything, my colleagues, just to make people laugh, right? So one day as a detective, one of the sergeants says, hey, Lou, your cartoons are awesome, your caricatures, but you ever think of being a sketch artist? And I said, no. And then the light bulb lit up. So I go and I start researching being a sketch artist. And I remember there was a lady who would do the sketches for us, and she would charge an arm and a leg. Like ridiculous, $600-700 per sketch. And desperate police departments will probably pay, but police departments typically don't pay. We're all cheap, right? So I found this lady out of the Houston Police Department named Lois Gibson. I researched her, the greatest sketch artist in the world. She's on the Guinness Book of World Records, the most successful sketch artist in the world. Well, that's the one I need to talk to. So I reached out to her, I found her, she called me. And I said, Lois, I want to be a sketch artist. Well, do you know how to draw? I was like, yes, I do. Well, it just so happened that she was going to come to the Northwestern University's Traffic Institute to teach 40 hours of forensic art, mastering forensic art techniques. She says, you're law enforcement, you can go. Your department can send you. So I requested to be sent to the school. They denied me 3 times.
Oh.
Okay. Sorry, Cook County. I'm gonna throw you under the bus for a second, but I still love you. And I'll tell you why. It's new. It's different. It was not very well understood. So I get it. I'm not mad at them for no, we don't need that. So what did I do? I took a week's vacation, paid it out of my own pocket.
Wow.
After the 40 hours, which was amazing, Lois says, well, you're a sketch artist now. You can go do sketches. All right, cool. So I'm driving home, and I stop at Area 3 or something, Chicago Police, Belmont and Western, right? Was on my way home. I go in there, I identify myself. Can I speak to the detective sergeant? Sure. They take me upstairs. Sergeant comes out. I'm Lou Santoyo. I'm a sketch artist. I gave him a card with my name and number on there. And if you ever need a sketch artist, call Lou. He's like, okay. Puts it in his desk. I walk out. I'm like, he ain't gonna call me. So I go home, right? I don't know, week, 2 weeks later, I get a call. It's him. Lou Santoyo, the sketch guy, called me. Chicago guys. Yeah, it's the sketch guy, Sarge. What can I do for you? We had a homicide. School teacher was murdered, female. The last person to see her alive was a bartender. Okay. So here I go, my little sketch pad, right? Show up. They bring the bartender in. Start doing the sketch. He looked like Red Fox from the show Sanford and Son. So I pull up a picture of Red Fox. What part of him looks like Red Fox? We have our materials, but since you're already referencing somebody that I could use, even better, right? His hair, eyebrows, this, that, the other. Okay, sketch it out. Here you go. Bada bing, bada boom. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the sergeant. We got the guy. His name's Ali Rockman. What? Seriously? He goes, yeah. We put it out in a bulletin. People picked him out right away. That's Ali from the block, they said.
Wow.
We grabbed him, gave us a confession. He's in the slammer now. Holy cow, it works. Lois Gibson, I call her. Lois, I got a hit. We call them hits, right?
Yeah.
I got my first hit. Congratulations. By the way, you can go to the FBI Academy, Lou. Did you know that? And I said, no, how does that work? Your department got a spot. Oh, forget it. They're not gonna. By that time, they already got wind of this. So it didn't cost them any money. She said, the FBI pays for everything. Okay. So I go to the department. I said, please, can you send me to the FBI Academy? It was like 2 months long almost.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't just like, you know what I mean? It was in Quantico.
Yeah.
So they approve it. I fly to Quantico. I'll never forget standing there waiting to be picked up by this shady looking bus. I thought I was going to the joint, right? We show up, they process us, take our fingerprints, cards, ID cards. If you leave the compound, you cannot come back in here. Okay. I mean, it's like you got to stay there now, right? Okay, cool. Trained by the best in the world.
Wow.
Forensic facial imaging. How to put skin on skulls. Perfecting our craft and sketch art and their way of interviewing witnesses and suspects. So I had another layer of interviewing techniques that I learned there, right? So I'm in class. No, I'm not in class. I'm in my room. My phone rings. Chicago police. We had a murder. Okay. Federal judge. Mother and husband were murdered. We need you to do the sketch. I can't. I'm in Quantico. Well, this is an emergency. He said that. This is an emergency. I said, well, call 911. I can't go. I'm sorry. You know, I did say that. And so they're like, we're very disappointed, but we understand. Next day, I'm in class. Santoyo, come out. You have a phone call. The chief, Sheriff's Police, Cook County Sheriff's Police. Lou, you got to come back. Chief, they want you to do the sketch. They need a sketch, and they want you to do it. And I was honored to hear that. Mm-hmm. But man, I said, Chief, if I leave, I can't come back. This is the training of my lifetime here, man. This is like the mecca of law enforcement here. He's like, I'm sorry. I'm ordering you to come back. Okay, how am I going to get back? Chicago's already purchased a ticket for you. Get on the plane. All right. So I'm going back to my room. I'm going to gather my stuff. And they're going to give me a ride to the airport, right? One of the directors from the FBI's facial imaging program stops me in the hallway. And he says, hey, I want you to know that case you're going to go work on, it's a federal case. We're involved in that too. He goes, go make us proud. You can come back when you're done.
Wow. So
I go out the door, didn't even go to my room. He told me there's a car waiting for you. I'm like, should I go to he goes, don't go anywhere. Just get in that car, go to Chicago. My ticket, it'll be waiting for you at Ronald Reagan Airport or something. I get in this car, Prince William County Police Department. They drive me to the airport. I get on a plane. I land at O'Hare. They stop the plane before it hits the gate. 2 Chicago cops come into the airplane. The the captain announces, "Would passenger Santoyo please come up to the front of the plane?" And there I am walking, 2 cops waiting for me, and a lady says, "I think he's getting arrested," right? This is like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
This is another highlight of my career.
Yeah.
They take me out of the plane, they put me in this little golf cart, drive me out to the back, take me home, grab my stuff. I went and did the sketch with some crazy dude, because that guy was nuts, and flew me back to Quantico. I come back. Later I found out that the suspect, his name was Bart Ross, who murdered her mom and husband. He had a beef with the judge because she ruled against him on a medical malpractice case. His chin was severely deformed, and he felt that the doctors shafted him, so he had a vendetta for the judge. He actually was waiting for her to come home. So a cop finds him in Wisconsin in his car, recognized him, and by the time he walked up to the driver's side, he blew his brains out. I got an award from the FBI for that case.
Wow.
And that's my sketch art story right there.
Recognized him from the sketch.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'm glad we hit on that.
I forgot
man.
that little detail.
I'm glad we hit on that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Jeez.
we talked a lot about your career, and a lot of the things that you had the opportunity to do. So at some point, the decision to retire pops up. How's that come about?
I believe that I had outgrown myself. I didn't outgrow the department. I outgrew myself. I didn't see myself as a sergeant anymore. I didn't want to be, at that point, my last couple of years, actually years prior, you know, you hear guys joking around, "Oh yeah, I'll be a Walmart greeter when I retire." And
Yep.
even though it was a joke, I'm like, I'm not going to be a Walmart. What am I going to do? And then it hit me during the times that I was working the crimes against children, and you find these child victims, you find the mothers, and juvenile crimes. That's what hit me. The kids, the mothers, and the youth. When you get there, they already committed the crime. They're already victimized. So I'm like, you know what? I want to do something where I'm on the other side. And where's that? I'm going to teach. So I went back to school probably 8 years before I retired. I made my decision back then. It took me 7 years to get my undergrad. And when I retired, I got into teaching. And then I right at that time, I made a decision to get my master's degree in criminal behavior. And because I wanted to, I was teaching at an inner city school, 6th grade, special ed kids with IEPs. Mm-hmm. And I noticed during teaching that these kids who could not perform well in school, they're always talking about the thug life and the colors and the flags and, you know, the gangs, and they like that. And I'm like, it wasn't just one. It was a number of kids who kind of followed that pattern. And I'm like, there's a correlation there, man. So I started doing my own research, and sure enough, I made friends with a guy from LA, and he says he's got statistics in LA that a large number of drive-by shootings, these kids are all IEP kids. So I'm thinking, here's something to think about. These kids are leveraging their weaknesses with what their perceived strengths are. I can't do well in school, but I'm somebody on the street. I'm strong out here. They validate me. I have a name. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I need to get involved in this now a little bit more. So I started teaching criminal justice, right? And that's the educational piece, which also took me where I'm at now. I'm an assistant warden at a state facility. It's a transition center where women are coming out of the prison system, and we help them reincorporate themselves into society. We provide all kinds of programs. I won't get into that. That's my mission right now. That type of thing. To impact the community in a way that kind of redeems me from where I couldn't help them when I was a detective, if that makes sense. It's kind of a personal mission now. Mm-hmm. You know, in 2022, I was in the hospital with COVID, and I thought I was going to die. I had pneumonia. I won't get into it. One night I thought I was going to pass away, And I had three things that went through my mind. Number one, I said the biggest prayer I've ever said in my life. I said it that night. Number two is, well, how are my kids and my family and my friends going to remember me? Are they going to remember me as a good guy or someone who fell short? I'm like, oh my God. And number three, I was like, what am I leaving behind? Am I leaving the world better than I found it? What kind of impact, did I make? I pulled through, right? 30 pounds lighter. I still can't smell good. Fine. That was 2022. So now, everything I'm doing now is purpose driven. Because now I'm like, I want to leverage everything I've learned, everything I've lived, and I want to impact my world the best way I could, so that when the time really comes and I got to say bye, I can look back and say, you know what, I left it better than I found it. I did contribute. Not that I wasn't, but I'm now more aware of it, if that makes sense.
So what are you doing now to try and further that goal, achieving that goal?
I decided to run for sheriff in my county.
What county is that?
Kane County. Yes, sir. I think that I can really, really make the impact I want to make with all these things I just told you as sheriff of Kane County.
So when you look back at your career and you kind of had those three things that really hit you hard in 2022 when you had COVID, everything that you've experienced, the goals that you've set for yourself now, do you have any advice for anybody that might be out there watching this that maybe has an interest in law enforcement or even has an interest in politics?
Yeah. I think that we could either complain about our world or we could do something about it. Mike Anton always said, my boss, I'm quoting Mike, he's such a great guy. I asked him one time, I said, hey, Mike, don't you feel sorry for these people? He says, kind of, sometimes. He goes, but you know what, Lou? Everybody is where they want to be. Otherwise, they would do something about it. And I get it. Sometimes you have no control. It doesn't mean everyone, but I understand what he meant. Mm-hmm. Like, if you really hate where you're at, do something about it. Policing may have changed. Politics is always changing, right? And we worry so much about the big picture. When I'm walking around talking to people or getting their signatures or whatever, people are like, they want to talk about national politics with me. And I'm like, well, we could talk about it all day long, but you know what? I don't make the calls up there. I have no say-so up there, except the vote whenever it comes up. But you and I have a say-so here in King County, here in Elburn, here in Chicago, wherever you're at. You could have a say-so, not just complaining. What can you do about it? And that's where I stand right now. I can do something about where I live. I can clean my street. Your street's dirty, mine's clean. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it now.
Lou, you had a great career and you're still doing great things, and hopefully you'll be doing some more in the future. I really appreciate you sitting down and sharing your journey with the badge.
And it's been a pleasure to be here. And you took me down memory lanes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, for both of us. So
no regrets. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.